Hey, how's it going guys? It's Scarecrow and welcome to Black Ops 3 In Depth. Today we're going to be focusing on the LV8 Basilisk. This gun was added into supply drops on December 16th, 2016, so it's been a little while since the gun has been released into Black Ops 3, but it is quite a strong, dependable weapon, and it does have some quirks actually that I didn't expect from the gun at all. So yeah, without further ado, let's just get right into this. Before I go any further, I want to say a huge thank you to Anarchy, a friend of mine, for allowing me to use his account to capture this footage and to use the weapon. Anarchy actually has nearly every single weapon in Black Ops 3 aside from 2 of them, so I'll probably be using his account on a few occasions to get gameplay and footage, and I really do appreciate it. With Black Ops 3 supply drop and weapon system being the way that it is annoying that I can't get this footage on my own account, but having people like this to really help me out really does make this process a lot easier and a lot smoother. So yeah, huge thanks to Anarchy for allowing me to use his account. Starting off with the damage, the LV8 has a rather typical, if not slightly interesting damage profile at 30 damage, dropping down to 29 damage, and then dropping down to 22 damage, meaning that it will be a 4 to 5 shot kill, which in itself is not too amazing or anything. We have a lot of guns in Black Ops 3 that will do that for you, namely the ICR is one that I can think of, but the range on it is quite respectable at 32 meters for the 4-shot kill, so that's quite a decent range. You will get a 4-shot kill up to 32 meters, which is quite far in terms of Black Ops 3 standards. There aren't a lot of maps that have sight lines that are that long, so that's quite a decent range. So yeah, I would call this gun quite good in the range department. It certainly can rival a lot of the other assault rifles when it comes to range. It has a headshot multiplier of 1.1x, so pretty much useless at just about any range unless you have high caliber. That seems to be the case with a lot of the guns in Black Ops 3. The headshot multipliers aren't really that effective unless you add high caliber on, and really on this gun, high caliber is not really even going to help out that much either, so I'm not going to recommend that. Now, one of the interesting factors for the LV8 is actually in its rate of fire. It has a rate of fire of 1000 RPM, a very tidy and number rounding figure there. It is also the fastest rate of fire out of all of the assault rifles in Black Ops 3, beating out the FFAR by 200 rounds per minute. This is a very fast firing gun, and it needs to be, and I'll get onto that in a second, but this rate of fire is extremely quick, so that coupled with the shots to kill in the range, this gun has the potential to be very good. The rate of fire is also bumped up to 1071 rounds per minute with rapid fire. The gun holds 34 rounds in a magazine, with the extended mags bumping it up to 48, so in my opinion, there's no real need for extended mags. 34 rounds is enough to kill more than a few people, especially with this gun and its rate of fire, although if you do feel comfortable with extended mags, by all means go right ahead. The reload speed on this gun is quite slow, which is why I'm going to be recommending fast mags in my class at the end, but it has a reload time of 2.56 seconds, so it's one of the slower reload times for the assault rifles, so I'm definitely going to recommend fast mags when you use this gun. It has a sprint out time of 0.3 seconds, which is pretty much standard for most of the assault rifles in this game, and an ADS time of 0.25 seconds, again standard for most of the assault rifles in this game. The recoil on this gun, I'm going to say though, is the balancing factor. It is quite unpredictable and quite high actually. I found myself going into this review thinking that this was a low recoil gun. When I picked it up off the ground, it didn't seem to have that much recoil, but using it in practical terms, it is quite high. And not only that, but it seems to be quite random. It seems to bounce and shake all over the place. I've had it going down, I've had it going up, left, right. It seems to go wherever it wants to go, and I couldn't really predict where the gun was going to go, so it's quite difficult to control. So that is why in my class eventually I'm going to say that it needs an ELO sight or a red dot sight of some description. So the recoil is quite high and difficult to control. Keep that in mind when using this weapon. The iron sights are definitely usable, but I'm going to recommend a sight for this gun just because the iron sights make it quite difficult to use, especially with the rate of fire and the recoil this gun has. I think that really, if you want to be using this gun optimally, you want to be putting an optic sight on it of some description. As for how this weapon performs with a silencer, this is actually one of the weapons that I'm going to recommend with a silencer. I actually found silencer with the rate of fire and the range profile to be not that cruel. I found it to be quite effective, especially on the smaller maps. It seems to work quite well, so I'm actually going to recommend a silencer on this gun. It works really well with the rate of fire, and I didn't really have any major drawbacks with it. As for what I think of this weapon is extremely powerful if it didn't have the delay on it. This gun has a delay before firing, so basically when you pull the trigger there is a delay like the P06, and although it's not too extreme, it's around a second if not less, it is enough to get you killed in many a situation. That's why this gun has such a high rate of fire to make up for that, but it still doesn't gloss over the fact that when you want the gun to perform, it's not going to perform. It's going to, you know, wait a second, charge up, and then start firing. So basically, you don't want to let go of the trigger. If you come across 3 enemies, you want to be spraying and praying. You want to be trying to mow them all down before you let go of the trigger, and that in itself is not a redeeming factor. That in itself is why I say that this gun is one of the worst supply drop weapons. It takes a lot of use with the gun for you to get comfortable with it, and even then, it severely lacks. If you come across a couple enemies, a lot of the time, you will barely have got a shot off before they've all, you know, shot you dead. And if you come across a situation where you're one-on-one with someone, a lot of the time they will have shot you dead with their gun because it doesn't have a drawback like this. This gun is extraordinarily strong, but it comes with a quirk and a drawback that just sets it way below the rest. It means that a lot of the time this gun is just not usable, and I wouldn't recommend it in a lot of situations. However, if you are going to use it, these are the 2 classes I found to have the most fun with. Now, this is a gun that I didn't find myself using a lot of attachments for. I basically only used a couple attachments and found myself doing quite well with it, even despite its drawbacks. So I'm going to recommend for class 1, QUICKDRAW, just of course, which is the standard on most of the assault rifles these days. I use QUICKDRAW on just about all of my assault rifles, just so I can aim down sight and compete with shotgun and SMG users. An ELO sight, because I found the ELO sight to help with the recoil quite a bit. I found that I could control it a lot better, and fast mags, just because the reload on this gun is quite crushingly slow, so I would recommend either fast mags or extended mags, your choice. And then class 2 is the class that I actually found myself having the most fun with, just because I like to be sneaky and stealthy, and this class, which is QUICKDRAW, ELO sight, and silencer coupled with ghost, actually seemed to be the most fun. I could pop around enemies, and not only that, but when I have a silencer on this gun, when I'm spraying as much, I don't attract as much attention, so the delay isn't quite as bad. It helps negate some of the delay if you're taking enemies by surprise, which is about the only way you're going to do well with this gun, is to constantly catch enemies by surprise, because the delay on this gun really does hurt any potential that this gun has of being competitive. So yeah, guys, that's my opinion on the gun. It's good, but it's definitely not god tier. The delay on that certainly does bump it down a few notches in terms of comparing to the other assault rifles in this game. So that's going to wrap it up for this in depth. I hope you guys have enjoyed. Thank you so much for watching. If you have enjoyed, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe for more, and I shall see you, beautiful people, in the next video.